Hello, mathematicians. Welcome back to Number Corner. For Number Corner today, we are reading and interpreting graphs. Today, we will look at our third graph for January. You will need a whiteboard, marker, and eraser. If you don't have a whiteboard, a piece of paper and a pencil will work just fine. You can pause the video now to get what you need. Now let's have a look at our graph. Here is our graph for today. Take a moment to look at it and think about what you notice. Now you may have noticed a few different things. You may have noticed at the top it says title, and on the bottom it says number of students. You may have noticed over here it says burgers, and in the second row it says mini pizzas. You may also have noticed a lot of numbers down at the bottom from 1 to 12. You may also have noticed we have pictures of burgers and mini pizzas. You may have noticed some other things too. Now when we look at a graph, we always want to think about the information we're getting from that graph, or the data. That's information. We usually are asking some type of question. What do you think the survey question for this graph was? What are we trying to find out? Now you may have had a few different ideas. One possible survey question is, what do you prefer, burgers or mini pizzas? Why is this a good survey question? Now you may have been thinking that this would be a good question for this graph because it shows burgers and mini pizzas. We also see who we're asking. We're asking students what they like. So we might be asking them if they like burgers or mini pizzas better. I want you to think about this graph. Is this graph a picture graph or a bar graph? And how do you know? Now you may have been thinking that this is a picture graph. If that's what you thought, show a connection. If you knew that because there's pictures to represent the choices, just like in our example over here, that's good thinking. Knowing that our survey question is, what do you prefer, burgers or mini pizzas? What do you think a good title for this graph would be? Remember, the title should be similar to the survey question. Now you may have had a few different ideas. You may have thought, well, these could be lunch or dinner options or choices. These could be favorite food choices. Or we could just say food choices. Let's use the title of food choices. Now for the next part, this is where you will need your whiteboard and marker because we're going to answer some questions about our graph using our calendar markers. Remember, when we have a graph this month, we'll have 4 equations that relate to that graph. Now we have our title of food choices up here. We know our survey question was, what do you prefer, burgers or mini pizzas? We also know that this is a picture graph. But what does each food item stand for? What does it represent? If you were thinking that each food item stands for one student's choice, give yourself a pat on the back. That's good thinking. Now, the next question I want to ask you, get out your whiteboards, is how many students participated in this survey? Write an equation to answer this question. Remember, the equation you will use is one of these four equations. Show a connection if you wrote the equation 7 plus 12 equals something. Why is this the correct equation to use? Now, if you were thinking, this is the correct equation because it shows us the 7 students that chose burgers plus the 12 students that chose mini pizzas to give us one answer for the total. That's good thinking. Use your strategies on your whiteboards to solve this equation. Seven plus 12 equals 19. You could have drawn a picture. You could have used your open number line. Whatever strategy you used will work as long as you get the correct answer. Now for our next question. How many more students chose pizza than hamburgers? What's the best equation to use? Take a moment to write it on your whiteboard. Now, if you were thinking the best equation to use is 12 minus 7, that's good thinking. Why is this the best equation to use? Now, if you were thinking, well, this shows us the difference. This is a subtraction problem. And we know that the difference we're looking for is the difference between the 12 students that chose mini pizzas and the 7 students that chose hamburgers. Use your strategies on your whiteboards to solve this problem. Show a connection if you answered the difference is 5. You could have used several different strategies. You could have used our new strategy to find the difference that we learned the other day on our number line of finding the make 10 fact of 7 plus 3 equals 10, and then the add 10 fact of 10 plus 2 equals 12 to add 3 and 2 together. You also could have looked up at our graph to see that if we drew a line right here where our pizzas keep going but our hamburgers stop, you could count that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pizzas. Now for our last question. I want you to think about what our 2 remaining equations represent. Our first equation of 7 plus 12 equals something showed how many students participated in the survey with 19. This equation, 12 minus 7 equals something, showed us how many more students chose pizza than hamburgers. If we have 12 minus 7 equals 5, we know 5 more students chose pizzas. What does the equation 19 minus 7 equals something represent? Now, if you were thinking that 19 minus 7 equals something would represent the number of students that chose pizza, show a connection. How did you know that that's what this equation represents? Now, you may have been thinking, well, I know that 19 students participated in this survey. Well, I know that 7 of them chose burgers. Whatever is left has to be the students that chose mini pizzas. Well, that's some good thinking. Use that same thinking for our next one. What does 12 plus something equals 19 represent in our graph? Show a connection if you were thinking 12 plus something equals 19 represents the number of students that chose burgers. That's good thinking. How did you know that? You may have been thinking, well, again, we know that 19 students participated in this survey. That's our total. We also know that 12 students chose pizzas. If we're trying to get to our total, we need to add 12 plus our other choice of burgers to get the answer of 19. That's good thinking. All right, mathematicians, thank you for interpreting this third graph with me today. Your job in Seesaw is to finish these two equations. 19 minus 7 equals something. Write the answer in Seesaw. 12 plus something equals 19. Write that answer in Seesaw. Great work today, and I will see you next time for Number Corner.